Okay, what if I told you there's one simple, almost foolproof rule that's behind nearly all extraordinary success stories? It's a thing called the STAR principle. And honestly, it's a formula that can totally change how you look at your business, your career, even your investments. So let's dive right in and break it down.
All right, let's just start with a really big question. What do you think is the single most important thing that makes any venture successful? Seriously, take a second. What's the first thing that pops into your head?
So if you're like most of us, you've probably thought of something like raw ability, right? Or just working harder than everyone else, or maybe having that dream team. And look, those things are important, for sure. But, and this is a big but, the source material we're looking at says they are not the deciding factor. The real key, the one thing that beats everything else, is positioning. It's not about how good you are, it's about where you're playing the game.
So what this really means is that your success is pretty much decided by one single thing, whether or not you're involved with a very specific kind of business. The author, Richard Koch, he calls this a star business. And trust me, once you get this concept, you're going to see it everywhere. It's kind of like the secret that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
Okay, so what exactly is a star business? This isn't some fuzzy, subjective idea. It's super clear, defined by just two simple objective conditions. That's it, just two. First, the business has to be the #1 leader in its market niche. And second, that niche has to be growing fast. We're talking at least 10% every single year. That's the whole formula. Be the leader in a fast-growing market.
Now, this idea didn't just come out of nowhere. It's actually built on a legendary framework from the Boston Consulting Group, the Growth/Share Matrix. You've probably seen this thing before. It maps businesses into 4 boxes. You've got your cash cows and your dogs in low-growth markets, and your question marks, which are trying to make it in high-growth ones. But our focus, the whole shebang, is right there in that top left corner, the stars. That's where the magic happens. This is the bedrock of the entire principle. But, here's the catch, and it's a big one. Future stars, they often don't look like much at the beginning. They can look kind of messy, even like they're failing. As the author puts it, it takes a whole lot of imagination to see a mighty oak when all you're looking at is a puny acorn. Let me give you a perfect real-world example of this.
So, back in the early 2000s, there was this tiny company called Betfair. It was a betting exchange, and man, it was just burning through cash. I mean, no serious venture capitalist would even go near it. To everyone on the outside, it looked like a total failure just waiting to happen.
But when Richard Koch looked at Betfair, he wasn't looking at the losses. He saw something else entirely. He saw a star. And why? Well, because it checked those 2 simple boxes. First, it had basically invented and was the absolute leader of a brand new niche, this betting exchange idea. And second, check this out. That niche was growing at an insane rate, over 30% per month. It was the absolute definition of a puny acorn that had the DNA of a mighty oak.
So what was the result of that bet on this struggling little company? His first investment multiplied, get this, 53 times over. 53! That right there is the raw power of the STAR principle. It's not about finding a business that looks perfect on paper. It's about finding one that fits the definition, even if it looks like a complete mess from the outside.
All right, so the power here is pretty undeniable, right? But that brings up the big question. How do you actually do this? How can you go out and find, or even better, create a star business for yourself? Well, the good news is it's not just luck. There's actually a system to it. It all starts by finding an existing market and then dividing it to create a brand new niche that you can absolutely own. Then you make sure that niche has the potential to grow fast. From there, you target a super specific group of customers, define a whole new set of benefits just for them, and finally, you make sure your new way of doing things is actually more profitable. It's really a step-by-step roadmap.
Okay, but that's the hard part, right? Where do the ideas even come from? How do you figure out which market to slice up? Well, the secret here is to use what the book calls triggers. These are basically proven patterns that have a knack for sparking star-level ideas.
And this is where it gets really fun and creative. The book actually lists 32 of these triggers. For example, you could take a totally boring product and create a luxury version of it. Think Starbucks and coffee. Or you could do the complete opposite and take a luxury item and create a mass market version. That's what Henry Ford did with cars. Or, one of my favorites, you can subtract features to create something super focused. Think of the original BlackBerry, which was all about one thing: email. Each one of these triggers is like a different pair of glasses to help you see opportunities that no one else does.
So you've got the strategy. You've got the triggers for ideas, but there is one final essential ingredient. And this one isn't about the market or the product. It's all about your mindset. It's a huge psychological shift you have to make.
You know, the founder of Walmart, the legendary Sam Walton, he nailed it. He said high expectations are the key to everything. And when it comes to a star business, that means having what the author calls unreasonable expectations for your growth. Not just high, but unreasonable.
And you can really see the difference in what that looks like right here. A typical cash cow business might be happy with less than 10% growth. A decent startup might shoot for, say, 10 to 20%. But a real star, they're aiming for 20, 30, 50% growth or even more, year after year. It is a completely different level of ambition. We're not talking about small, reasonable improvements. We're talking about demanding explosive, nonstop growth.
So here's the big takeaway. Stop worrying about whether your idea sounds reasonable or if it's perfect. That's the wrong question. Instead, just ask yourself if it fits the two rules. Can this idea become the leader in a niche? And is that niche growing fast? That's it. That is the whole formula. That is the STAR principle. So the only question left for you is, what's your STAR?